Hello, thank you so much for joining me here today. I am Dr. Kanika. I'm a board certified internal medicine physician. I'm also a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant. I work with organizations who are committed to creating and leveraging opportunities for communities of color. I do that through diversity strategy, anti-racist trainings, and then policy implementation. So, why are we here? Why are you here? Why am I, chatting with you today? And I wanted to talk about Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. I think that this is an amazing, amazing time. So many people are, talking about this, tweeting about this. This is just a beautiful moment in our history. Um, and I titled this, We Are Ketanji. I am Ketanji. And we're going to talk about what that means. But let me tell you, so I'm going to set the stage for you. Last week, I'm 43 years old and I have never, ever watched a confirmation hearing. Um, Ain't nobody really got time for that, honestly. I'm a busy professional working mom, and it's just never been something on my radar until last week. And last week I made time. I made time to sit and to watch this. And I can tell you last week that there were millions of Black women who also made time to sit and to watch our sister. Some of us showed up for very different reasons, but I think we all stayed for very similar reasons. I am lit. I am lit. Judge Jackson, she sparked that spark. It was amazing. I joined because this is a Black woman, because this is history. This is history in the making. And I stayed because I was getting a civics lesson. I was getting a history lesson. It was a beautiful thing. And the other thing that was so amazing as I watched this was to watch a woman who clearly had her stuff together, who clearly was just excellence personified. And it was amazing. So why did I watch? I'll say we are Ketanji. From her name, I love her name, to the fact that she went to public school, to the fact that she was, like I said, excellence personified. Also looking at the fact that she was clearly, and I'm sure has been underestimated throughout various stages of her life. And so when I say we are Ketanji, I speak in terms of, as Black women, no matter where we are, whether we are, entry level positions, middle management, or even higher, no matter where you go, as Black women, we are consistently underestimated. And so when I say we are Ketanji, it's about working twice as hard to get half as much. And even when you still come with the receipts, you are disrespected. Now, one of the things I'm going to do, so during this conversation, I am going to refer to not doctor, but to Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson as Ketanji. And like I said, for many, many reasons, because we are Ketanji, Black women, it's her name is a beautiful thing. But before I spend the rest of this time with you talking about the reason why I'm here and why this is such a pivotal moment for Black women, not only in the legal space, but like in all the spheres, I want to make sure we put some respect on her name. She is not just Ketanji. She is Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. She has earned every single one, every title. She's earned it. And I will tell you, the reason this is so meaningful, especially as a Black woman, is because when you are Black, people will take every opportunity to take away what you have learned, what you have earned. President Obama was Barack, not President Obama. He was Barack. There were people who took, what's the word? They thought they could refer to him in a certain way because he was a Black man. He's the president of the United States, but he was Barack instead of President Obama. And in my space, there are those who want to call me Kanika instead of calling me Dr. Sims, in the hospital, in workplaces, because people just don't like to they don't want to put respect on our names. And so I want to make it very clear, I am not disrespecting my sister. I have the utmost respect for her. And so when I refer to her as Ketanji, there is a reason. But she is Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. She has all of my respect, and I am just so proud of her. But I think it's super, super important that another reason I want to refer to her as Ketanji is because my name is Kanika. And as a Kanika, I know what it means to have a name that is not a traditionally Eurocentric name. I know what it means to walk through these spaces. And I've even had my moment where I changed my name from Kanika to something that was just a little bit more palatable for mainstream. And so for all of the Ketanjis and Kanikas and Ayanas and Taniquas, I think it is just so compelling that her name is Ketanji and that there's excellence in her. There's excellence that you can't take away from any of us. And, so frequently in the workplace, we are judged by not only our skin color, but also our names. And so this is why throughout this talk, it's Ketanji Brown Jackson, KBJ, got it. But I'm going to refer to her as Ketanji because we are Ketanji as Black women, and I love it, and I'm here for it. I will tell you, I actually named my children, names that would ensure that they would get interviews, that would ensure that their CVs would not go into the discard pile. It would be in the one that we would call in, because as we know, that there are organizations that do not interview us because of our names. Like there have been lots of studies and research that shows that. And so sometimes it can hinder our opportunities. And because of that, I made a choice when I named my child to make sure I named my children names that would be considered a little bit more Eurocentric. So like I said, I am here to celebrate the Ketanjis, Kanikas, Taniquas, Ayanas. I love it. And I just think it is amazing that we are being placed in the spotlight. And of course, a name doesn't determine your excellence. Of course not. But in our society, anything related to being Black can be considered a detriment because of the way our society and our institutions are structured. So this is why I am spending so much time celebrating her name, saying her name, just letting it roll off the tip of my tongue, because I think it is a beautiful name and it says so much. I am so thankful for her parents for naming her Ketanji, and just offering an opportunity for little Black girls, for older Black girls like myself to be able to look at her and to see that name and to see that excellence reflected back on us. So let's talk about this working twice as hard, because, if you're a woman of color, you got this. You've heard this, that, we work twice as hard to get half as much. That is just something that is very clear to us. And what I will say is Black women watching Ketanji, there was anger, there was joy, there was we got you, sis. For every Black woman in America, in workplaces who are overqualified, overprepared, who have all the receipts, and still we have to continue to prove ourselves every single day over and over and over again. If you look at Ketanji's record and you look at her accomplishments, she has done so much. And as Black women, we can look at that and we understand. We get all the degrees, we get all the certifications. We are constantly having to put receipts, to make sure we have our receipts and make sure that we are really clear about, I am qualified to be here. I've worked really hard to be here. I deserve to be here. I promise you, I'm probably overqualified to be here. And so to watch her, a woman who has all the receipts to undergo what she went through, it was hard. It was hard. And knowing that she could not raise an eyebrow, knowing that she had to be calm, she had to be cool. I mean, she demonstrated such poise that I will tell you, when I was watching, I was like, those are goals. Those are goals. I want to be that poised when I grow up. But I quickly went from the thought of those are goals to, why is it that as a Black woman, we always have to be poised? We always have to be completely calm, completely collected, even when we're being disrespected, even when we're being talked down to. Why is it? It's one of those things. And so I will tell you, I'm of the school of thought. If you can see my shirt, um, let's see, it says, well behaved women seldom make history. And I will say, clearly, Ketanji is, okay, she was well behaved and she is also going to make some history. But I subscribe to the philosophy that well behaved women never make history. So I am okay not being well behaved. Um, and but what is it about our society, about a white supremacist society that says, as Black people, because this isn't just Black women, this is Black men as well, we are not allowed to be angry. We are not allowed to show emotion. If you are white, you can be angry, you can show emotion. If we do it, we become dangerous and threatening and considered aggressive. And so I'm not okay with that, really not okay with that. And I really had to think about, why are those my goals? Being poised and always not demonstrating emotion or strong emotion. Because it makes others feel unsafe when I do. For the longest time, I didn't do DEI work, and I didn't do DEI work because I was so passionate about it, and because it made me sad, it made me angry, it made me just watching these things happen. Because for me, DEI work is not trendy. DEI work is a necessity. DEI work is life. I have children who are going to go into these workplaces. I have children who are going to go into these universities and these colleges. And so this is personal for me. And so with it being personal, it was really, and knowing that there are people's lives that are being destroyed because of racism, because of discrimination, opportunities not being achieved because of those things. That's not something that's easy for me to stomach. And always having to be mindful about what you say because you don't want to offend anybody. Those are all things that made it really challenging for me to do DEI work. And, it's interesting because Ketanji had to hold it together. She had to hold it together. Absolutely. There's no room for error if you are a Black woman. But Kavanaugh was able to cry like a baby and just say, I just wanted some beer. Who gets to do that? We do not get to do those things at all. And so, there are also those who will say that, listen, this is just political theater. The senators who gave her a hard time, the senators who were condescending, the senators who did these things, it's political theater. Let's not make it a bigger thing. This is what they always do. But they're just pandering to their base. And I want to tell you, this is not theater. This is not just political theater. This is not just a pandering to base. I will tell you, this happens every single day in organizations across America to Black women who are mistreated. And this is not pandering. Every Black woman who watched the confirmation hearings, they looked at that and they saw themselves. They've at least all had one time when they were in that position where they too were being the condescension, the belief that you're not good enough. It's there. And so what you see as political theater, we see as life. And I want you to understand that what you saw on national TV happens in our boardrooms, it happens in our offices, it happens at work every single day for Black women. And I want to make that very, very clear. Once again, whether you're at entry level, mid-level, or at the top of your game, it still happens to us. And, I want to give an example about workplace mistreatment, because what we saw with Ketanji and what I'm telling you happens every single day is a part of what makes the experience in the workplace very different if you are a person of color. And when we talk about creating inclusive environments, we have to look at how workplace mistreatment negatively affects your employees of color. And so I'm going to share a story with you. I'm an attending physician, so that means I'm a physician that trains residents on how to become physicians. And I received a text last week from from a resident, and she asked me, she said, Dr. Sims, do you have a moment to talk? And I was like, sure, so I called her, and she shared with me this interaction that she had with the nurse, an interaction that was completely inappropriate in terms of, the nurse basically harassing her and being disrespectful and all of these things. And finally, after multiple attempts of my resident doctor in training to say, listen, enough is enough. Um, her response was one that the nurse was not happy with, and the nurse ended up reporting her to the leadership. And so she was calling me because she was really, really upset and really hurt that, she was being called to task for being considered to be rude and disrespectful. And she said to me with tears, she said, Dr. Sims, I'm disrespected every single day. Every single day. She didn't say she was disrespected sometimes. She didn't say she was disrespected, every once in a while. She said, I am disrespected every single day. And I will tell you, I have the highest standards. And I've worked with this resident doctor, and she is amazing. She is dedicated. She is diligent. She is a person who I would want to take care of me if I were sick. And when I tell you, to hear her in tears saying she is disrespected every single day, I will also tell you she's a Black resident female physician. The nurse is a white woman, and I can tell you two things. I can tell you, one, this would not have happened if she were a white male resident physician. It would not have happened. These things they don't get treated this way. And I will tell you the second thing is I am incredibly disappointed. I am a DEI expert. This is what I do. And I'm really disappointed at the advice I gave her. Now, one piece of advice I gave her was good. I said, persevere. But the second piece of advice I gave her advice explaining to her how to navigate these situations in the future, how to make them less likely to occur. And while that advice might seem to be like, well, sounds like good advice, I gave her advice on how to make herself smaller. I gave her advice on how to make herself less offensive, because that is what we do. As Black women, we learn to shrink ourselves. We learn to carry ourselves differently to make sure we don't offend you. We learn to move through spaces in a way that does not honor who we are. We learn to work in spaces where we are disrespected every single day, and then somehow expected to smile, somehow expected to be well poised, and to not push back. My resident pushed back, and instead of me telling her how to effectively shrink herself to be less offensive, what the conversation should have been was not only an affirmation of her as an amazing doctor, but also an affirmation of the fact that she's working in a hospital, in a structure that is not created for us to succeed, that this is systemic racism. And instead of me teaching her how to navigate the system, we should be talking about how do we change this system. As I said, incredibly disappointed that at that moment, I reverted back to what I have been taught, how I have been trained, and the things that have made me get to this point. But in hindsight, knowing, no, this is why I DEI. This is why I do this work, because we have to change organizations. We have to change what behaviors are acceptable. And instead of chastising those who are working within systems where we are berated and harassed and mistreated, instead of asking us to change our response to that system, we must work from the top, from the bottom, from the sides to change the system so that we all can be in these places and we can thrive. So I just, for me, that to me is just one example. And I wanted to share that story of the mistreatment that we receive in the workplace. And I'm going to sum this up, bring this to a close with saying, dear white people, I really want you to ask yourself one question. Key takeaway for you, because I know a lot of white people saw those hearings and they just thought that this is horrible. This is racist. This is biased. The way they're treating her is unacceptable. How can they treat someone who has her credentials that way? How can they treat someone who is as accomplished as she? This is horrible. And to those of you who saw that this was just political pandering and that this isn't really real, it's just political theater, no, I need you to understand this is happening every single day to Black women who are equally as talented, equally as accomplished in their fields. And I want you to ask yourself, are you playing a role in creating environments where people feel excluded? Are you playing a role in making Black women feel small and making Black women have to shrink and be less than who they are in order to survive in your organization? And if you are a leader, I implore you to ask that question and to really, really look for the answer, because frequently this is done every single day in our workplaces by leaders who will say that they are not racist, they are not biased, but they are doing this to Black women. And this is not inclusive. This is not okay. And there are systems of oppression that have been in place for so long that many of you don't even know that you are complicit in doing these things. And so, as I go back, and I will say something that may be offensive to some people, but many of you exhibit the same behaviors as the senators. I will tell you, watching those senators, they would come out there and they would just say the kindest, most pleasing things. And then they come in with this question, and then their line of questioning would become more and more and more just egregious. And you realize, like they say, wolves in sheep clothing. That is what they are. And that is what so many of our managers are and in these organizations, where we as Black women know, you may come to me with a smile right now, but I know that you might flip on me any second. And so I'm always waiting. And can you imagine what that does to your employees of color who are always waiting for that other shoe to drop? And if you are that leader, if you are that manager, I want you to make sure that you're creating spaces where people don't have to shrink and they don't have to become less than in order to make you feel comfortable. And so, as in closing, as I say, this is why I DEI. We are all Ketanji. I am so, so honored to live in this moment, in this time where I've seen the first Black president. I've seen the first Black female vice president. And I will also see the first Black female Supreme Court justice. This is an honor. This is amazing. But for every Ketanji that you see, there are millions more that you do not see. And so what are we going to do to create better organizations, to create organizations that are inclusive, to create organizations that allow all of us to shine? So I've actually created, I have a little training that you can download, and it's the top 10 pitfalls to avoid when creating anti-racist organizations. So you can find that at www.fortheculturenow.com. And I hope that if you're watching this, you're interested in creating anti-racist organizations. And I really hope that the training is helpful in helping you to avoid the top 10 pitfalls that I see in organizations. And thanks so much for joining me. It's been amazing having you here. And for those of you who watch this in replay, thanks so much for getting to the end. And for those of you who joined late and who may not know me, I am Dr. Kanika. I'm a board certified internal medicine doctor, also a diversity, equity, and inclusion strategist. And I work with organizations just like yours who are committed to leveraging and creating opportunities for communities of color. And I do that through diversity strategy, anti-racist trainings, and also policy implementation. So if I can help, love to help. You can find me on all the social media platforms at Dr. Kanika. And I'm also, you can email me at info@drkanikamd.com. It's been fun, super excited. Can't wait to celebrate mid-April when Judge Jackson is confirmed because I am speaking it. She is going to be confirmed. And I hope you enjoy. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time.